Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Alright, so as you can tell by the title, we are going to be talking about Android 11 here on my Pixel 4a. Now, this particular update, the stable update, the full update to Android 11, somewhat surprisingly came out for this Pixel 4a that I have, and I was super excited to get it, but let me update you on a couple of things before we get started in this video. Now, this update did come out this past Tuesday, earlier this week, but it was also the same day that we were given, my family and I were given something called an evacuation warning. Basically, one of the fires that is raging in California right now is not that far from me, so we had to be ready, my family and I, in case we had to leave at a moment's notice. So I packed up my desk and I threw it in my car, and I wasn't really able to work over the last number of days. That's why this video is coming out now, even though Android 11 has been around for a little while. Now, even though we have to be ready in case anything changes, as of right now, we're not in immediate danger, so I went ahead and set my desk back up to like a bare bones type of feel, so that I could get videos like this one done and the many that I have to do over the next week or two, because there's a lot going on. I will be ready to get out of here. I want to thank everybody for checking in with me, and also if you saw my Twitter, I did give that update earlier this week. So all of you out there who have been sort of sending thoughts and whatnot, thank you so much. I want to send out thoughts to anybody in California affected by any of these fires as well. Take care of yourselves and each other, and hopefully we will get out of this soon enough. But there's another reason why I wanted to do this Android 11 video as soon as possible, and that's why I'm doing it right now with this setup I have at the moment. It's because with Android 11 officially coming out for the Pixel devices, it means that all the other phone companies are going to follow. And I've had it in mind to just do videos on the various versions of Android 11 as they come out, and just see how the different phone companies actually put together their flavors of Android. So of course we have to start off with the OG of them all, the stock Android version, and that's what we have here with Android 11. I'm here on the Easter egg screen, and what's funny is that I try to get it over to 11, turn it up to 11 as it were, but it takes a little bit, and once you do, you just get that little cat emoji on the bottom. Perfectly fine. I love the idea of turning it up to 11. Gotta love the punnage that Google likes to put into their Android versions. But let's go ahead and go to the home screen, and from here, actually, before I even talk about this, let me do one thing real quick. There you go. So what you saw is actually the first feature that I'm going to talk about here, and it is the power menu. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the menu that comes up when you hold the power button. I already saw this in the Android 11 beta, and some of you out there might have already experienced it if you've been on top of the betas, but yeah, this is what you get. You hold the power button, you still have the ability to power off and restart, you get the emergency button, and then down here on the bottom, you have all of the different toggles that you would have already set up in Google Home. To be honest, I enjoy this kind of control a lot more than using Google Home, using my voice with Google Assistant in order to turn these things on and off. This is just a little bit easier. It's definitely a lot more reliable because Google Assistant sometimes doesn't recognize my voice quite as accurately. If you press and hold on the actual button, then you get a few more options. Like for example, here we have the color, we have a bunch of different swatches here, and I can change it up to, let's say, red, just so we can give you that look. Oh. Not sure if I would actually do videos with this color behind me. The other convenience you have in the power menu are your Google Pay methods. So if you have like credit cards and whatnot set up in Google Pay, then you can pick which ones show up here. And then in an era where we have like contactless payments becoming more and more prevalent, this is really useful to have at the ready by holding the power button. Bear in mind though that there's a bit of setup required for all of this stuff. Like I said before, you go into Google Home, you have to set up all of your different switches and your smart appliances or smart whatevers, and then you can set them up in the power menu. The same thing goes for these payment methods. You have to go into Google Pay, get all of that set up, and then you can pick which ones make it into the power menu. So of course, like with most things, we have to start with the power button on a smartphone, and that's why I started with the power menu. But I'm going to give you some context as to why these features actually really helped me out this past week, and that's why I wanted to give those perspectives on it. A great example is if I go to the home screen, I can get right into one of those particular scenarios. These are called the app suggestions. If I go over to the home screen or the home settings, right here you have suggestions. You can have the suggestions in the app list, you can have suggestions on the home screen, and that's what we're talking about. See how that empty space is there? That's because all of these folders are usually my dock in Android. If I were to move them down here, And this is usually how I set up my Android device, of course with a custom background, but for now I kept it on a stock one. So yeah, I have all of my apps here at the ready. But the app suggestions, when you turn them on, you turn it on, and there you go. Get app suggestions on the bottom row of your home screen. It's not just the bottom row of the home screen though, it actually kind of becomes the dock. So get app suggestions and it pushes all of my folders up from the bottom. This is the reason why it wasn't my favorite feature in the Android 11 betas, because I have all of these folders set up in my dock and that's just the way that I operate. And now Google is like, nope, we're gonna push that up. And now you have folders on your actual home screen and we're just gonna take that space for ourselves. But the thing about the app suggestions that I noticed this past week is it was actually trying to really know what I was using more frequently, especially given the situation that I'm in. YouTube and Instagram, kind of obvious, just sort of entertaining myself and distracting myself from everything that's going on. But then you see that the first two here are Telegram and Twitter. Telegram obviously being how I keep in touch with everyone that is close to me, but then Twitter was the way that I started to keep myself informed about the fires that are happening here in SoCal. I usually don't have Twitter installed. It's not in any of my folders that would normally be in the dock. Generally, because I try to stay off of the toxicity that is social media most of the time, I open up Chrome browser and intentionally go to Twitter using that so that I don't have an app installed that is just sort of bugging me all the time, or I might fall into that black hole of just scrolling through it and not get anything done. But because of how important things have been this past week to stay informed on, I did install Twitter again, but I didn't want to put it in my actual dock folders. By turning on the app suggestions, it made sure that Twitter was still around because I was constantly looking at it, obviously, to stay informed. So the app suggestions actually turned out to be quite helpful for this particular scenario. So if there are certain applications that you use very often, the app suggestions are kind of a good way of keeping them there so you don't have to go fiddling with your folders or the app drawer to try and find it. But it's not just how much you use any one application at a given point, it's also kind of what's new and what has trended the most on your phone based upon a new installation. This is a great example, Windy. This is an app that I installed to get a look at the different wind patterns because one of the fears that we had is that the wind pattern would actually push the fire into our neighborhoods. So being able to look at the wind patterns became important. I installed this basically on like Wednesday or something, and it's been in the app suggestions area pretty frequently, knowing that I want to look at it because I just installed it for that purpose. I don't know, maybe I'm giving the app suggestions area just a little bit too much credit, but to be honest, it came in very handy for what has been going on over the past 3 to 5 days. Okay, so I tried to provide a little bit of perspective why certain features that are new to Android 11 have really worked for me in terms of my current context, but let's get into a few other features in Android 11 that I just kind of adore. The first one being, obviously, the screen recorder. You don't even have to press and hold on here, it is natively in Android 11, so that when you press that button, you can record your audio from the microphone even, or even the device audio, which is pretty dope, or even both, even better. Also, if you haven't noticed by now, I like using the screen recorder in my general reviews, because it's kind of cool to have the phone just sitting in my hand, and then it's just doing its thing without me even touching the screen. A lot of people have asked me how I get those shots. Screen recording. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and address the elephant in the room in a couple of different ways. I have a ton of notifications open. I know that really irks a lot of you out there, but I left them open because I want to illustrate some cool things about notifications. Now, coming up, I'm going to go ahead and start from the bottom, moving up. You start off with silent here at the bottom with applications that may or may not be super imperative to respond to immediately. But then you get the middle area, which is a little bit more classic in terms of what notifications you get and how they're grouped. But there are certain things that I could move to the silent area, like for example, the WWE app. So if I press and hold on here, I can make sure that these are now silent. So it's always going to come down to the bottom. But you know what I do need right away are all of my conversations. I asked a few friends to message me some random stuff, and in Nick's case, he's asking me, hold on, don't you have a lady friend for these things? First of all, Issa's asleep. I should tell him that, so let's use another thing out of notifications to do that. There's this little button right here that will make Telegram or any particular application that lands in the conversations area into a bubble. Of course, it doesn't work right now. That's the thing. With Telegram in particular, the bubbles don't seem to work quite as reliably. So even if I were to press this button right now, it's not really working. Like here, oh, that one worked. Okay, cool. Well, there you go. It'll work sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. But here, just a look at the bubble. And what we have here are basically chat heads, like from Facebook Messenger, but it's baked into Android 11 now. So the other thing that you have to make sure to do is to not go back when you're using the bubble. Tap on a blank area of the screen, that way it'll float, because if I were to go here and then hit back, it would make it go away. There's not really an easy way of opening up the bubbles again, which is something that is odd to me. It should be easier to open up like your previous used bubbles, or maybe have an area where you can pick which applications or which chats you want to create bubbles out of. Normally I despise chat heads on Facebook Messenger, but I'm into the bubbles here on Android 11. They're not quite as egregious, or rather they're not too in your face, and it's nice that they stick to the side rather than being like this floaty circle. It just looks a little bit better, a little bit more streamlined, and I enjoy it a lot more. It just needs to be less buggy, especially with things like Telegram, but I understand that it's also not working with the chat apparatuses of things like Instagram, so it just needs to have more of that support, and hopefully that will come later on. One final thing that I do want to talk about is how notifications aren't just in the shade anymore. If you are curious about what notifications are coming up for specific applications, you just have to tap and hold and bring up that quick menu for any given application. For example, tap and hold on Telegram, and you have this quick menu to be able to talk to people immediately, have those shortcuts. It's a nice thing that has always been there since like the last 2 versions of Android. But now, if you do that here, you get the notifications underneath that quick menu. So if you just want to be able to look at a couple of other notifications, you can always tap and hold, and you'll be able to go straight to that application's notification the same way you would in the shade. Would I rely on those notifications showing up in the app shortcut? Probably not. I wouldn't use it too often, but there are times when I'm scrolling through the app drawer, and if I just want to see what's going on there without dragging down the notification shade, it's nice that the option's there. One last thing that I will mention about the notification area is that you have media controls now, which is technically part of the quick settings. I mean, it makes sense to be up in this area, but there's a line dividing it, so it's kind of below it. You just jump over to YouTube real quick and start playing that. Of course, picture-in-picture is still a thing, which I use all the time, but I'm going to put that in the background. And the other thing you'll see here is that in the media controls, if you have multiple apps that are playing media, you can switch between them. So if I pause this one, press play on the podcast, definitely nice and convenient to have it there. So it's just up there. It might take up a little bit more space, but again, it's nice that the option is around. And finally, the thing that you can do here is change which media application is blasting out to which audio product. In this case, it's just going to be the phone speaker. I don't have any of my other Bluetooth stuff connected, but that's another option that you have given these media controls. And then I have one final thing I wanted to highlight from Android 11, one of its main features that has been enhanced, and that is screenshotting. You still have the classic way of doing screenshots, power button and volume down, so if I were to just hold this, it will show this particular dialogue. I just like how this looks. You can edit it, share it immediately, and if you were to hit edit, you have a couple of extra tools here, but of course the main thing that we might end up doing more often than not is just cropping into a particular area, and then hitting done. And it asks you if you want to save it or to do anything else here. I'm not sure why delete is there. You could just hit back, but you just save it in files and photos. But the other cool thing you can do now is go into the recent apps, and let's say I just pick a certain application here. Let's just do this one, hit screenshot, and then get into an actual application, and it's there, ready to go, like immediately. This is actually really good because let's say you're jumping between certain applications and you want to get a quick screenshot of something funny you saw, let's say on Instagram, and you can immediately get that over to like your messaging app, kind of like what I did just now. And so there you have it, a look at the, let's say, high-level features of Android 11, which have been introduced in this new version. But as with every version of Android, the phone companies will find ways of adding their own features on top of what's already being introduced in the stock editions. And of course, all of those versions of Android are set to come out fairly soon. Every company's trying their best to get their version of Android 11 out. So I thought, why not do a video about the different ways that phone companies are adding their layers on top of Android 11. So we'll see how these phone companies add features on top of what is already very useful in stock Android. A lot of these features I've been wanting for a long time, like a screen recorder, and now it is built right in. Of course, that will bring into question how things like, let's say, screen recorders will affect like third-party screen recorders inside of the Play Store, or even the screen recorders that were built into the various versions of Android that I just mentioned. But you know what? It's been about 45 minutes of me talking about Android 11. I've done multiple takes of this video. I'm just trying to get back into the flow of things, and with this more bare bones setup that I have, I'm just trying to get some simple videos out so that I can get back on that horse. So hopefully everyone is taking care of yourselves and each other. Please just put some thoughts and prayers out there to anybody affected by these fires. And hopefully you enjoyed this look at Android 11. I had to be sure to get this out because soon the other versions of Android 11 will be coming out, and I want to do videos on those as well. But yeah, subscribe to my channel for all of my coverage of pretty much anything going on right now. It's a busy time, and until my next video, I would just remind you to enjoy your tea, everybody.